Okay, hi everyone. It's Rory here from Edge of the Box Mentoring. I'm here chatting with a good friend, Rob Morledge, who's a strength and conditioning coach at a professional football club in Cambodia. I'll hand you over to him now to give a bit of a brief about himself. Rob.
Cheers, Rory. So I moved over to Cambodia about a year ago to work for a professional football club called Svay Reng FC. Previously to me joining them, they just won the Cambodian League with a new coach from Ireland called Nesta. So he wanted me to go over because he needed a fitness coach. So I moved from Singapore as a personal trainer to Svay Reng. So far it's been great. In terms of like what I've done qualifications wise, I did my degree at Chichester, my sports science degree, and I did a master's degree in strength and conditioning. That was at Coventry University, and whilst I was doing that, I was doing like internships at Coventry City Football Club, West Brom Football Club, and also Leicestershire City Cricket. And then after that, I managed to get like a full-time position at West Brom, where I was an academy S&C coach, where I worked from the under-23s all the way down to the under-9s. And then moved to Singapore just because I wanted to get out of the UK and explore a bit of Asia and do something different. But after about a year and a half of that, I knew that I wanted to get back into football and work within a team environment. And here I am now, one year on later.
Brilliant. And how's that first year been in Cambodia, Rob? How have you found it as a change of culture from Singapore even?
Yeah, so like when Singapore's an amazing city. Everything's clean, safe, brand new. So when I got to Cambodia, I was a little bit like, not too sure what I've done here. But 2 weeks into it, I was like, oh, this is amazing. Very cool place, very relaxed, lots of fun. And the locals are all very friendly. As soon as I got introduced to the football players, they didn't really speak a lot of English. I didn't know a lot of Khmer, but we also really got on, and I was welcomed as part of the family straight away. In terms of the football season, we were top of the league for a long time. We lost 2 games in the middle of the season, which took us a second. It went right down to the wire, the last game in the season, where we literally lost the league. The last kick of the game, our opponents were playing another team, and they needed to lose, and we needed to win. We won our game 4-0. And in the 97th minute, our opponents scored to draw their game, which basically made them win the league. So we was absolutely gutted. Last kick of the game, we lost the league. But apart from losing that, it was still an excellent season. I learned a lot about myself, a lot about strength conditioning, a lot about performance within football. It was a really good season, and looking forward to the next season now.
Brilliant. Just want to touch on a couple of points you made there. So one being the transition from not only Singapore, but also professional football in England to professional football in Asia. For me, from what I've seen, like from a strength and conditioning point anyway, physical stature, that type of sort of attribute that a footballer will possess in Europe, they might not have here. How does that transfer for you in your job? Is it more focus on the strength rather than the conditioning, or how does it look? Yeah,
so you're right in that physically, I would say they're behind in terms of like a lot of the European teams, but that comes from the academy structures that the European teams have got. A lot of me and yourself, we would have done PE at school, like decent physical education curriculum where we did lots of different sports. I mean, I don't know about you, but I was doing rugby, football, gymnastics, tennis, swimming. So first of all, you're gonna build a really good physical stature from that. Being in Cambodia, they're a third world country, so I mean it's probably about 4 or 5 grass football pitches in the whole of Phnom Penh. You know, so there's not many swimming pools, not many tennis courts, and And as a whole, really, to play a sport, you've got to maybe have a little bit of money and come from a better background. But in Phnom Penh here is a lot of poverty, so the kids, they don't know how to, they're not being taught how to move properly. In the schools, they're not doing a proper physical education curriculum or anything like that. So my job really is to instill the basics in some of the youth players to start off with. So the 17 or 18-year-olds, like, can they squat? Can they decelerate properly? Can they basically move better? And then I can start doing more intense movements and a lot more strength and power movements. So in terms of that physical stature, yeah, Cambodia is quite far behind.
Brilliant, but you're building it up. Adding on to that, the most interesting point I think you made, just from a coaching perspective, and having both studied coaching at a decent level before, the communication, so the language barrier, and you mentioned that initially must have some relevance to you. Obviously, communicating with guys who speak English as a first language, even then, there's little nuances you have to make. There's ways to speak to certain players and arm around the shoulder with some, maybe a bit of a bollocking to others. How does that work when you've got a language barrier to deal with?
Yeah, good question. Some of the more senior players speak a little bit more English. So if you can get those players on your side by giving them a little bit of extra help, I'm always messaging them on Facebook. How are you feeling today, mate? What you've been eating today? Do you need any help with your food? Do you need an extra gym program to help you with things like that? And they like that. And as soon as the other players see that the more senior players are warming to you and are doing extracurricular stuff with you, then they seem to warm to you as well. And a big part of it is just being fun and having a laugh with them as well. Like, even though the language barrier is a big thing, you can still have a really good laugh. My nickname is Art Anglais, and they call me Scoot, which is crazy in Khmer, because I'll do like funny things. And and as much as I'm professional and my gym programs are good, and I still have a laugh with them, and that helps. Yeah, exactly. So I still join in with some of the football stuff, and absolutely shocking at shooting and a lot of things. So they'll laugh at me for that and stuff like that. So yeah, you'll find ways, but the main one was like just going out your way, like messaging them a lot, and just giving them a little bit more than what they used to.
So being a person first and a sort of football man second, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. And then an interesting question, which is putting you on the spot a bit, but these lads, especially the senior guys, who've probably got many international caps for Cambodia and are experienced at that level, do you see any transferable? Do you think they'd be able to cut it in Europe at some level, these guys, or how do you think they fit?
Yeah, so we played in the AFC, which is like the Asians Champions League, and we lost to a very good Filipino team who had a lot of European players who played in Europe. We lost 4-1. It was definitely wasn't how the game went really. We had they scored a handball, we missed a penalty, and our players were more than capable of handling their players, and we played against Bali United as well, and we beat them 2-1, and they had a lot of very good European players in their team, and our players, were better than them. So for sure, 100%, like they could definitely go over to Europe. Technically and tactically, we'll probably do all right. Maybe they just need to be better physically in terms of their intensity. Obviously, the intensity of the game is probably much higher. So
yeah, I think the same for the lads in Singapore that I'm working with. Obviously, there's some sort of barriers up there for getting them over to Europe, but it's that belief that they can, and transferring out of some very small bubble, obviously in football terms, to something bigger and better. Maybe a pathway towards the bigger picture in Asia would be a good start for them guys, and then you build from there, right? Get more international.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, the good thing is that, like, well, I know for Cambodia, and I know also for Thailand and Malaysia and Vietnam, they're starting to get a lot more European coaches come over with really good qualifications. So the exposure that they're getting now to this advanced coaching is only going to propel it. So yeah, we've recently just signed, I can't say the names, but we've recently just signed 2 very good players from Europe who have played in the Europa League. So,
Brilliant.
you know, it's only going to get better.
That's good. That's good. Then moving forwards to yourself now, obviously you've got ambitions of your own as your career progresses, but you're more than happy now where you are. How do you see your career panning out, and where do you see yourself in a few years' time?
So I say I was working in the Premier League for West Brom's Academy. It's a really good start. And then I went away from football because I wanted to be a personal trainer in Singapore. But that was more about, traveling around Asia and just working with different people. So then I was like, I need to get back into football. And once you've come out of it, it's quite hard to get back in. So for me, like, just getting it back into football in a professional football team has been excellent so far. One thing is, and I'll admit it, is that I'm still learning a lot. And although we are here to win titles and we're here to win games, I've not got as much pressure as I would have if I was at a much better team, or a team in place in a higher league, for example. So the manager, Colin Esther, he lets me do what I want. He trusts me, and maybe if I make a little mistake, it's okay, So, kind of advice for coaches going forward, don't be afraid to coach anyone, and have a couple of years in them lower leagues and try new things out, because once you get to the higher leagues, you won't be able to do too much because the players are protected too much by the managers. At West Brom, there was a few instances where the managers wouldn't even let their players sprint in training because they were so scared of them getting injured. And if you can't sprint in training, what do you think is going to happen in a full match? You're going to get injured, kind of thing. But here you can do what you want. The manager's good. In terms of the future, I've got one more year here at Svay Reng, and I want to win the league, maybe win the cup. Definitely, I think we can do well. And then after that, we'll see what happens. Like in the strength conditioning industry, like things are always going forward. So, and maybe at a club of this stature, you don't have all the facilities, you don't have all the testing equipment, you don't have that high performance centre that a Tottenham or Chelsea will have. So, and of course, me being ambitious, so I want to be able to work in that kind of environment, but I'm not too eager to jump at that yet. I want to learn at these levels first and then gradually build myself up.
Excellent. And what would you recommend sort of as a player pathway? Would you say that would mimic? So I'm working with the young Lions boys who are 18, 19, 20 now. A few of them harbour ambitions of going over to play in Europe, but my line of thinking is they can make that leap. They're probably ready to, but would they be better just getting a bit more game time, a bit more experience under the belt, developing that physical stature ready to go? Or do you think you just jump when you get the chance as a player as well as a coach? What would your thoughts be on that?
Yeah, interesting question, actually. Firstly, I know Europe is obviously the dream, but Asia's getting really, really good at football now. Like, you've seen, like, the Korean teams, the Japanese teams, Thailand, Malaysia, they've all got excellent development centres now. Vietnam are excellent. They've got an academy called the PVF Academy, which Ryan Giggs is the CEO, I think, of. Yeah. And they're pumping a lot of money into it now. So don't be scared to like go around to Thailand and Vietnam and build your trade there, because then there's like other countries in the Middle East and India that will be looking, because they'll know they'll be able to get them on cheaper wages. Yeah. And then there's your stepping stone over to Europe. If you do well in India, you have managers like Robbie Fowler now, Owen Coyle was there at one stage, a lot of David James was there at one stage, and then so they know people in Europe, right? So yeah. You've got to take your chance. So you think where you're going to play, as long as it's a good standard, and then you build from there, really. I was speaking to a gentleman from the Man City group recently, and I was talking about moving back to Europe to get into strength conditioning, and he was just saying, no, stay in Asia. It's going to get massive here now.
Yeah.
Put teams in Indonesia like Bali. It's not about money, but they are paying big wages for European footballers now. So definitely worth staying in Asia for a little bit.
Brilliant. And then just back to you to round off nicely. So what's your, you got a side venture at the moment, which is kind of incorporating the personal training you used to do. If you want to give a bit of promotion to that.
So when I'll just say this because I think it's interesting for people to hear. When I was working in Singapore, obviously the disposable income is a lot more compared to Cambodia. So I was earning more money in Singapore as a personal trainer. As many S&C coaches know, you're going to earn more money as a working by yourself because you don't get paid that much working for some clubs. So when I moved to Cambodia, I took a pay cut because I wanted to get into football, and it was the best thing I've ever done. But part of that made me think, if I'm not working, I need to be have like a side venture like online coaching. My online coaching is more about normal people training like an athlete. So a lot of people think, I don't want to go and do bodybuilding in the gym, or I don't want to be a powerlifter. Well, for me, my philosophy is you don't have to. You can still train like an athlete as a normal person. You should be able to jump and sprint and hop and bound at 40 years old and squat 1.5 times your body weight. And I think a lot of people just are scared to do it. And with my online coaching, that is what I push. I also do a lot of football performance kind of consultation as well. But the programs I put out for footballers and normal people, so 35-year-old John who works in an office, they're similar. They're still going to squat, they're still going to deadlift, they're still going to push, pull. There will just be certain changes in intensity and volume because they'll be used at different levels. But that's what I believe, and everyone should be able to train like an athlete.
Brilliant. Fully agree from this side of the Asian pond as well. Right, Rob, thanks so much for your time. It's been good chatting.
Enjoyed it.
Right, mate. Take care, and all the best with the season and pre-season.
Cheers, Roy. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.